I'm making this video because someone asked a very good question in response to one of my BLT videos. And that was about the relationship between using Prolotherpy and balanced ligamentous tension. And they also had a question about what was a joint's neutral position. So first off, I'll explain the neutral position. The neutral position is the position the joint takes up when there is no muscle activation around it, when the muscles are maximally relaxed, and it's determined by the summation of tension of the soft tissues that connect to it. So the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons. When there's a trauma that happens to a joint, that balance can be shifted from the original neutral. So the original neutral should be relatively well neutral. So the segment is not unusually flexed or extended, it's not side bent either direction, and it's not rotated either direction. And moving it in any of those directions will feel just as easy. So going left side bending or right side bending, it'll feel about the same. And rotation, it'll feel about the same either way. Flexion, extension, it'll feel about the same either way. When there is an injury that changes that balance, then one direction will have drag when you approach it. There'll be more resistance to moving there, and the end feel won't be this nice, bouncy, smooth end feel like a non-traumatized joint. So that's what we mean by the original neutral position. So when we used balanced ligamentous tension technique, we're recreating balanced ligamentous tension. So it's named by what our goal is. Originally, the joint was already in balance, but when, say something happens where, a wrist gets shifted that way, well then all this stuff is stretched out, so the neutral will shift into that direction. So in order to find balance, we have to tighten the stuff that's stretched out and give slack to the stuff that wasn't. When we find that position of balance, there is a feel that the osteopath has, or whatever practitioner is using this approach, generally an osteopath, of engagement, of balance, of flow. And then the inherent motions in the body, the cranial rhythmic impulse, or the cranial sacral rhythm, there's a lot of terms for that, will be moving through, you'll feel that flow, and a release will occur, where the motive force for the relief is not the practitioner moving it into the direction of the release, but it's actually the inherent forces in the body. And then the structure, the joint, will move back towards a more neutral position. So this is called an indirect approach, and we've demonstrated through in vitro studies where there are experimental ligaments, basically like fibroblasts that have been made to populate a certain scaffolding and create a ligament, and the ligament was injured and different types of treatments were applied to it. They showed that using the BLT treatment actually resulted in strengthening of that ligament back to pre-injury levels. But that took a period of time. Ligaments take about 3 months to heal completely. So in a lot of cases where there's not actual disruption of the ligaments, there's not significant micro tearing in them, there's just really a strain in them, all we need is BLT, especially if we get it soon. If we get it 10, 20 years later and it was a really severe injury, what we'll generally see is improvement pretty quickly, and then stabilizing also fairly quickly. But then as they get further out from their last treatment, if they try to load the joint, they try to do anything strenuous, that symptoms will return. Generally not nearly as bad as they were before treatment. It will be a shadow, a fraction of what it was, but still bothersome, and people still want to get that resolved. So those are the cases where I use Prolotherpy. And I use the term Prolotherpy to include platelet-rich plasma. Some people put that into a separate category, but I include it within Prolotherapy because it results in strengthening of the ligaments, a sort of proliferation effect on the ligaments. But I'll almost always start with using osteopathic manual treatment first before doing PRP injections, unless a patient comes to me specifically asking for PRP injections, because it is perfectly acceptable to start with that, and we can get some very fast, amazing results Typically afterwards, we still need to do some fine-tuning manually because we've strengthened the ligaments, but there can still be that shock trauma response in them that is restricting free motion. So there you have it. That is how BLT and Prolotherapy can be combined together to get more optimal results and keep people from having to come back in to get treatment, and also help them to be able to do more vigorous activity without re-triggering an old injury. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch my video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and like this video, and have a great day.